We are live at SCI TV. I'm Joshua Gordon, the founder of the Sports Conflict Institute, joined by my co-host, Dr. Ken Pendleton. Ken, welcome.
Hi, Josh.
Ken, I think we're in for a fun episode today. We have Coach Driscoll from the University of North Florida. Coach, welcome.
Hey, guys, I really appreciate you having me on. And obviously, the Conflict Institution is something that a lot of people go to for different ideas, different thoughts. And I think as you get older, like I'm 50 now, so the more experiences you have, the greater things that are out there. You know, wise counsel really helps out. So I'm glad that people are seeking out different ways or different ideas to probably or maybe look at a different conflict.
So, Coach, we're thrilled to have you. You've had a really nice run this year, ending up in the first four, making the tournament. We'd love to hear a bit about that. We also want to hear about some of your other stops along the way, too. You've been at Baylor, Valparaiso. You've been at Clemson and Wyoming. You're no stranger to this sport and what it means to be a coach and to deal with the challenges of being a coach. So maybe you could give us a little bit of a background about how you end up at UNF and what some of the experience there has been so far.
Well, I don't know if you have enough terabyte cells to save all this information about how I got to where I am right now, because it's been an unbelievable journey. And I'm a big believer that God puts you in certain places and God does certain things and puts different stars on maps and different stops along the way. And that come to fruition for me throughout these 27 years of coaching. You know, as you talked about, I was a high school coach. I've coached at every level. Junior college, Division III, NAI, Division II. I was a JV high school coach. Got a great letter from one of my JV kids that I coached him when we made this run. So I've been around it a lot. But when I went to the Division I ranks at Wyoming in 1997, our athletic director there was a guy by the name of Lee Moon. And Coach Moon, we were only there for 13 months. It was a tough place to live. And I would be lying if I wouldn't say that I was excited about going to Clemson, to be in South Carolina after being in Laramie through some of those -20s. That's without the wind chill, by the way. And from there, you know, we went to Clemson, the ACC, and then we got fired. And, you know, when you get fired, like everything else in life, you know, you got a family, you got 2 kids, you're trying to get those people situated and have, you know, more of a commonality, you know, your life back to normal. And in this business, that's tough. And so we took the job at Valparaiso, and we were there for 7 whole weeks. And then we got the Baylor job, which is another great story for you. But when we go to Baylor, we take over, and this is where you're a conflict institution. We can talk about this more in depth in a little bit, but, you know, when one player murdered another in 2003, and Coach Drew was given the reins, so to speak, to come in and really at first, I think they want us to just come in and kind of clean things up and kind of get, you know, the feeling of goodness, the feeling of it's okay, the feeling of our institution is really a special place, all those kind of feelings, as opposed to when you heard of Baylor, that's what you thought of. And they had no idea, none, that in 5 years we would go from that debacle to the greatest turnaround in college basketball history. And what started it, which is really cool, was the 5 overtime game. When we beat Texas A&M in 5 overtimes, it really started the national media to come back to Baylor, not because of the murder, but because of what was really going on. And then while we were there after our 6th year, the University of North Florida came open in 2009. And guess who the athletic director was? Lee Moon, the same athletic director that was at Wyoming. So that's kind of how the whole thing went down and kind of how I got to here. And that's interesting because the year before, I didn't get the St. Francis PA job, and it was back in my hometown. 1 year after, I didn't get the Robert Morris job that Mike Rice got, and that's another conflict institution we could talk about some other day. But, you know, Mike got the job, and the St. Francis job passed on me, and I came home and told my wife, and she's like, "Sweetheart, God doesn't think you're ready to be a coach." And that really hurt because she was hitting me right straight in the eyes. I'm like, we just went from a murder to the NCAA tournament. I mean, I'm 44 years old. I mean, you kidding me? I mean, St. Francis, PA, I mean, come on. And she was right, and God wasn't ready. And next thing you know, bada bing, bada boom, we end up here because of Coach Moon.
Coach, you mentioned the murder, but when you...
By the way, nobody can answer a question longer than me, is there?
We'll keep you from filibustering, however. If you when you took the Baylor job, you mentioned the murder. which is, which I can, that having a team deal with tragedy would be hard enough. But you also, the previous coach, Dave Bliss, was removed because he was actively involved in, in covering and paying the tuition of former players. The players were allowed, core players on the team left, but, were allowed to leave voluntarily, became key players at Mississippi State, Oklahoma State.
How about players of the year in those leagues, respectively?
Yeah, you were put on incredibly severe probation. You're an enthusiastic man. That must have helped you a little, but how did you address that challenge? How do you build a team and keep a team, because most players are incentivized by the NCAA tournament, by these ends. What kind of ends did you give your players to say, guys, we can make something, my mom always likes to say, we can make lemonade out or lemon meringue pie out of these lemons, because you had a lot of lemons.
Well, what's crazy is we weren't allowed to go back to the store and turn them in. Like when you get a lemon car. The thing is, Coach Drew really created a clear vision and really had an understanding. I'm a big believer that you don't stare up the steps in order to show your vision. You have to actually do the opposite. You have to step up the stairs to get where you want to get to. And Coach was very clear. Coach, what are we going to sell? Like, our locker room had, like, master locks on the lockers. And, what are we going to sell? What are we going to tell these kids that we want to bring in? And he's like, it's easy. We're going to the Final Four. I'm like, okay. That's it. We're going to the Final Four. We're going to get great players. We're going to coach them up. We're getting to the Final Four. So that's what we did. And next thing you know, we're trying to get involved with all these different top players. And Coach Drew is a master recruiter. Like, his big thing is, don't tell me to go out and evaluate anybody. Just tell me who the players are, and I'll go get them. And obviously, you could see his success from having that kind of an attitude and that kind of an approach. So we just kind of went along with Coach and just said, okay, because like everything else in life, we know there's a problem, but give us the solutions. So we went at it hard, and what we did is we hired a couple in-state guys that really knew the landscape and really had a hold on the high school people and the coaches and the understanding about what the state was like, because we were the newest people in the state, but people felt a little bit sorry for us. And they felt like, you know what, let's help these guys out. Let's try to, get on their side, so to speak. However, guess what kind of players they wanted to help us out with? The ones that Texas and Kansas and everybody else in our league didn't want. So we had to convince them, and we had to build and keep up with the Joneses, and we had to put money out. For instance, we spent $3,000 on a smoked piece of glass to separate our locker room from our bathroom, and had Baylor etched in it. And we thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And we're selling it to recruits. And are you kidding me? Come on. So the next year, we go to this meeting, and Coach convinces this guy, hey, we need a locker room. We need the Spurs seats. It's actually very similar to this seat I sit in right here. You can't see it. Well, here now you can see it. One of them Herman Miller deals. And so we need a golf cart to take them around campus. Bada bing, bada boom, all these dudes were falling in love with Coach. And so we got an upgraded locker room. We got PlayStations in every locker, 17-inch drop-down screens. Everything an 18 to 22-year-old kid would want. And then we beat Texas on a kid. And when we did that, it really, really, really separated us and really started making people. And then we get Tweety Carter, McDonald's All-American. And then you start getting better and better and better. And then here's where Coach was great. Coach was like, and the one thing about me is I'm not a yes guy. I'm going to give you my opinion. But when we leave the office, we're going to be on the same page, and we're going to be in unit. Well, we were recruiting this kid named Darius Dunn. Have you ever heard of him? So, Darius, I'm like, Coach, we can't take Darius Dunn. This joker, where's he going to play? We got Tweety. We got CJ. Curtis Gerald's obviously played for the Spurs. He's making $1 million a year in rush right now. Henry Dugat, 1,000-point scorer. He ain't going to play. Coach said, Driss, trust me. Just trust me. We got to get all the best dudes we can get. I'm like, Coach, he's going to be miserable. Trust me. I said, all right, Coach, I trust you. We signed Darius Dunn. He comes off the bench, averages 14 a game, has 38 against Texas Tech, has 30 down against South Carolina, He ends up being freshman of the year. He leads us to the NCAA tournament. And then what happened 4 years later? He's the all-time leading scorer in Big 12 history. So Coach's big vision was go get players, go get players. And we just continued to grow, build a new practice facility. Women won the 2005 national championship. So as soon as they win it, we're like, let's go. Money people, let's go. Women need a practice facility. We need one. We got to keep up with the Joneses, Oklahoma, Texas. And it all just kept, God just kept on just pouring and pouring and pouring. And, you know, we didn't have football wasn't great then. So, you know, we told people we weren't a football school, which was different than Texas and Oklahoma. So it was something that it's kind of Coach's vision is what really is the way we really sold that and the way we really embraced that as far as coming from where we were. Our third year, they canceled our non-conference season. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes.
94 straight days of practice. 94. Our first Big 12 opener, they gave us the bye week. How nice is that for them? So we got 90. Yeah, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We opened up at Texas Tech on January 11th. I'll never forget it.
So Coach, you know, here you are coming in the aftermath of crisis, and you know, trying to build from the ground up. And you talk about, you know, all the enthusiasm and the vision and everything else. How much were you guys having to figure out who were high character guys coming in, or how much were you scaffolding to make sure that even folks with some question marks on their background would survive and thrive under your system?
Well, the one thing that we've always been really good at, and I think our staff really had a great pulse, is I think, like everything else, if you cast a big enough net and you talk to enough people, you'll get the flags. And if you just do the principal and you just do the coach and you forget about the security guard and you forget about the science teacher and you forget about the custodian you bump into when you're in the school, and if you don't cast a big enough net, then your odds or your chances of finding out that there's a character flaw somewhere becomes that much more critical. So we just cast a huge net, and we really, Coach was huge. I mean huge on making sure that we were locked in to all the people that this person felt was not only their champions in life to help them make decisions, but those that they had the most respect for, but maybe weren't that touched, like maybe their 8th grade coach they mentioned made a difference in their life. And so those kind of people, we were very, and we do the same thing here. I mean, the one thing about character is you can tell someone's character by the way they treat those that can do nothing to them. So when you talk to people and you spend time with people at their school, in their community, yada, 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 that really don't have any skin in the game, you can really find out a lot about somebody. And of course, you know, you judge a person's character by the way they act when no one's watching. So how do they enter the facility? How do they act when they're in the stands? How do they act when they're at the concessions? How do they act when they're walking through the hotel, or when they're going through the parking lot, or when they're just, you know, meandering around at the AAU event but they're really not playing? How do they act when there's a situation that's not good during a game? How do they act when they get pulled out of the game? How do they act when they're sitting on the bench? How do they act when they're hurt? How do they act when whatever? So we're really big more on that than really if they can play. If we don't know they can play by the time we're recruiting them, we're probably recruiting the wrong dude. Yeah. So we're really looking more at those two things as far as character is concerned, because in my opinion, there's only two things that can garnish trust. And once you get trust, then you can give your keys, basically let somebody babysit your family. Like when I look at dudes, I want to know these dudes can babysit my boys when my boys were that age. I want to know these dudes can be around the young children that we have in our program. So if you've got character, not if you're a character, if you've got character and you've got competence, like really good understanding of, in this case, who you are, what's your game, what you're trying to do with your life, if you have great competence and great understanding and knowledge base of that, then those two things combined usually makes a trustworthy person. And that's critical for us in our recruiting. We don't do any mailouts. None. None. If a kid ever says to me when we're recruiting them, Coach, I got a letter from you, that's a lie. You didn't get one from me, because we don't send letters. And we don't do emails, and we don't do blasts, and we don't do this, that, or the other thing. We do a very, very much old school recruiting.
You've had to confront some remarkable challenges, because we've spoken about Baylor, but you just mentioned at Baylor you got to play up the fact that you were not at Texas, Oklahoma, for example, or football schools. At Clemson, you faced the opposite problem.
Huh.
Yeah, and you had to face the fact that you have a school that at least wants to think of itself as a national power.
Correct.
And
well, there's still, 1981 they won a national championship. That's when I was there in 1997. Everybody talked about it.
Right. No, and Sweeney's doing a remarkable job now, and they're back on probably the best footing they've been in a very long time. So how did you?
Coach Bowden was pretty good. Coach Bowden did a really good job.
Yeah, he did. He did a very good job.
Coach Bowden taught me something. He said there's a fine line. I'll never forget this. There's a fine line between winning 9 games and winning 10, or in this case, from being in the BCS or not being in the BCS. And in order to cross that threshold or be in that talk or conversation, you've got to do some really special things. And I think he got the 9 games a couple times. I don't think he ever got the 10. But you're right. Clemson is a different situation. When they let us go, and I talked to one of their ADs about what he thought, I told him the more different, probably the better. And if you remember, Oliver had some success early because why? He pressed, and nobody pressed. So he was different. He had a different style. He had a different. Remember that? Remember how they were? I think they went to the NCAA tournament a couple times under Oliver, didn't they?
Yes.
So you're right. Clemson is an interesting. You're right. That's a good point.
So, Coach, you've talked a bit about all the things you do in terms of trying to make sure you have the right guys on your team. Whether it's past place you've been or where you are now at UNF. And what are some of the things once they get there that you do to ensure that they're operating in a way that's consistent with your values and your structures that you have set forth in your program?
Wow, that's a great, man. I tell you what, it's that's awesome that you asked that. In the sense that we really have a family atmosphere, and we really believe in family, and being a servant leader, and allowing them to understand what it means to serve and how important serving is what has got us to this stage. And we were on the cusp a couple of years ago when we won 16 games and had the best team returning. And when these guys came back, unfortunately, one of our guys had to leave the team for his dad died. You talk about conflict institute. That was an incredible situation that I had no idea how to handle. And he played 5 games and then he imploded. And then he could have been the all-time leading scorer in school history. Ended up finishing his career at Wyoming. We got him his degree here, though. But, we really, really, really do and say a lot and talk a lot about life and the realness of what we do and how important it is to love others more than you love yourself. And if you can learn to love yourself less, then everything else is going to be that much greater. We have a saying, many hands make work. And when we get off the bus on road games, I'm the first guy off the bus. Our staff's right behind me, and we're unloading the bus because I want these guys to understand that we're servants as well. And they understand that going through. We do some themes every year. 2 years ago, it was one word, and every guy picked a word, and they described why they picked a word. And once they did that, we used that throughout the year and talked about their word and how it came into play. Of course, John Gordon, it's his deal, it's his book, And here's the thing. This is what we hung up in the locker room, if you can see that. And what we did is we made a basketball out of their words, and we did a graphic for it. So every day they walked in, they saw it. And there was a talk about, something. And it's a really good book. It's a short book. It's called One Word That Will Change Your Life. And it's a great book, wherever your screen is. But so we do stuff like that. And what I did is I made the guys fill out 5 questions about different things that I asked them that year. This year, our theme was why. That was our theme, why. And what I did was, and you can see, I had the guys, and there's the guys is right there. And what I did is we asked them questions, and it was, why are you at UNF, and why does your degree matter? Why are you going to be able to cut down the nets on March 8th, 2015? How about that? Why do you play basketball, and why does your personal agenda allow UNF men's basketball to continue its culture? Because we have a very strong culture here. Very, very strong. Our guys will tell you, don't burn a bridge. I mean, there's things like that they'll tell you because we talk about that. Why does your skill set make you a viable player for the success of our basketball program? And then the last one is, you'll like this because it's right up your alley, Ken. Why do you handle adversity the way you do? So what I did is on the other side, I answered those same questions from my heart. So I kind of gave them what I was looking for as far as what they're going to do. And then what I did was we took all their answers. And of course, there's some commonalities amongst them. So we made one piece of paper with no names, and we answered all those questions with their different bullet points. For instance, why are you UNF? Because I'll be the first one to ever get my degree in my family. That kind of stuff. So we presented that to them at the end of summer. And we said, look, here's what everybody's thinking. Here's what everybody does. Here's where everybody is. And just to give them an idea of what everybody's thought process was. And then when we got back, we did this thing this year, and you guys will like this. It's called the Family Series. It was the most powerful thing. I've been involved. Did you see the thing the other day about Doc Carr?
No.
Went into Notre Dame. Did you guys read that article about Notre Dame? You guys didn't read it?
No.
Josh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Give us a summary of the article. So our
It was
audience.
basically what's the great shooter, the pitcher for Notre Dame? Anyways, number 24. I know his number. Anyways, him and Grant are the seniors, and guys were doing this and doing that. So basically, they brought in Doc Carr, and the reason I think they brought him in is because Anthony Solomon was with me at Clemson. We brought in Doc Carr, and he's at Notre Dame now. Maybe not, but I'm thinking that's why. But he does this. He did UConn when they won the national championship. He does this conflict resolution stuff. One of the things he does, he has a basketball, and he kind of flips it around the room, and he calls it the cake. And when you get it, then you're supposed to talk. Well, we did a thing. This has nothing to do with him. I don't even know why I digress. But anyways, we did this thing called, Ken, you like that? We did this thing called the Family Series. And here's what it was. Your history, your heartache, your highlight, your hero, and then your hope. So five H's. 2 years ago, somebody turned me on to it at a coach's Christian retreat. And I kind of put it to the side. This summer, 2 different coaches said something to my assistant in July on the road. We had talked about it in June. And I said to myself, God's putting this on my heart because God wants us to do this. So we did it. It was the most powerful thing you could ever see in your life. 18 to 22-year-old guys. 4 to 8 minutes, maybe, max, in tears, talking about different things in their life. Coaches had to do it. Managers had to do it. And I'm talking about in tears. One of our coaches one day, after hearing 3 or 4 guys, and I didn't do it in an order that had any sense. I just picked them to pick them. One of our coaches, after several of our guys talked about their heartaches, it was his turn. And he said, you know, my heartache and my highlight are the same thing. Both of my parents were divorced, but they both remarried, and all 4 of my parents now are great human beings. They love me to no end, and they help make me who I am today. And it hurts me. It hurts me to hear what you guys don't even, some of you, we have a guy on our team that doesn't have any because his mom died of cancer. And it was just so powerful to hear everybody's plight and everybody's, some guys say, Coach, I don't have a heartache. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay that you don't. That's great. So that family series really, really, really helps. I think boot camp helps too, as crazy as that sounds. The obstacle course at boot camp, I think, really helps bring the guys together. And the last day we go to the ocean, and then at the end we go and get breakfast. I think that's huge. And the other thing too, I think it's huge, is we took cell phones away from meals. And we went to Canada on a tour. Guys couldn't use their phones. They're never loud at restaurants. I'm like, I walk over, I'm like, guys, you guys got to calm down. I walk back over, and I'm like, to myself, like, why are they so loud tonight? Like, why all of a sudden are they loud? And one of our assistants says, well, Coach, they ain't got their phones. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So no more phones. Only one phone goes in, one of the assistants, so we can call the bus. And it is so awesome. I mean, they're talking. I got a dude on the team. One day he's talking about the NFL draft. The next morning he's talking about ISIS. And the next evening he's talking about what's better, Lil Wayne or Drake's new album. I mean, it's incredible. Incredible. So I don't know if I answered your question.
I think you did. So Coach, you've done an unbelievable job of helping share how you bring people into your program, how you've supported them. What are some of the ways that folks can continue to follow you for advice and guidance, whether it's Twitter or elsewhere? How can people track your progress and your team's progress moving forward?
I think to follow some things. I mean, Twitter. I'm very, very, very transparent and share a lot of things on Twitter at UNF B-Ball, at UNF B-Ball. And then you can always email me. And I'm not going to give you my email address. I'm going to let you find it yourself. If you really want to email me, you'll figure it out. Go to our website. Because it's interesting, some of the things we get and some of the emails we get and the way some people ask certain things. And, you know, I answer my emails. I do my own emails. And I think it's important, you know, if it's apropos, to help people as best we can and to be a servant as best we can. So it's an interesting place. You know, we're 8 miles from the ocean. We're the largest city by land. I'm sure you don't even know that. We're the largest city by land in America. We're about 13th in true city population. There's only 32 cities in America got an NFL team. We got one, so that's got to make your city pretty special. And we don't have football. And when you don't have football at a school and your men's basketball, you know, there's a lot of pressure from the sense that we understand, at least I understand, forget we, I understand that my job is very, very, very critical to the overall university's growth. And only being since 72, you know, we got about 50,000 alum that live in the surrounding 5 counties. You know, our growth is just growing. We're about 16,000 by day and about 4,000 by night. So it's a great, great, great place. And here's what they say, and you'll like this. There's no one like you, and there's no place like this.
Fantastic. Hey, Coach, thank you so much for taking the time.
But that was easy. We're done already?
It's no wonder why all of your programs have had a trajectory going in that direction, and we'll continue to follow you with great interest. So thank you so much.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.